I'm James Loveday. I'm from Support Navigator. I recently had a shave, so the picture looks different to what I used to look like, but I'm still wearing a black hat, so kind of look the same. So yeah, I'm James Loveday, and I'm going to be talking about key insights into growing your business in a very competitive market. Let's admit it. This is competitive, okay? Hopefully I pressed it in the right direction. Cool. So just before I ask what you do, I just want to warn you that, one, I swear a lot. Two, I don't really care if you care about that. And three, it's a part of who I am, so deal with it. And I want everyone else to understand in the room that a part of who you are is what other people need to deal with. So, what do you do? I'm hoping everyone in this room is an NDIS service provider, because if you're not, you're in the wrong room. The doors are over there. There's some lovely elevator music. Cool. So, right now we're in Caroline Springs, okay? And in Caroline Springs, at this exact second within this postcode, within 5Ks, we have, 773 registered providers on the NDIS website saying they work within this area, okay? That does not include unregistered providers, okay? That is a huge market of people trying to work in this area, okay? So, competitive market. NDIS, highly competitive. This is me playing on Canva and ChatGPT at the same time, to come up with all these providers, but obviously this is an extremely competitive market. Let's learn from other competitive markets. Telecommunications, okay? Telecommunications is a highly competitive market. But if you look at this picture, or that one over there, you will notice that all of these companies are basically doing Telstra, okay? Just like all of these companies are doing NDIS. All these companies have positioned themselves slightly differently, selling the exact same service. Put your hand up here if you do support coordination. Okay, later on, these are the guys you want to talk to. Okay, cool. So, put your hand up if you do core services or SIL. Okay. Put your hand up if you do therapeutic services, allied health, stuff like that. Okay, cool. Sorry. So, very competitive market, but let's talk about core. It's probably the biggest market we're looking at, okay? If everyone's doing core and everyone's saying, hey, we do core, just like these guys are saying we do telecommunications, what's defining the difference between them? So if we're looking at these companies here, we've got companies like Woolworths, okay? Woolworths is our big providers, our top 10, our top 20, our hundreds of millions of dollars providers, okay? They have a market already that they're dealing with. That's the reason Telstra has gone into telecommunications. They already have the market. You've got smaller providers. You've got Boots. They focus solely on youth. The way in which they approach is we're about youth. We're about being hip. We're about being happening. We have providers in this room that are that as well. So every single person on selling Telstra is defining who they are. So how do you define your purpose in a competitive market? That's what we're going to talk about. What do you do? So the problem we have at the moment is if I walk up and say, what do you do? You're probably going to say to me, we do SIL and we do core services, okay? Which in theory does not define you from anyone else in the room or anyone else in the market. So what we need to be asking is, I like crosses, is what do you offer? Not what do you do, but what do you offer? Because when we ask what you offer, we understand that little bit more about you as a company. Okay. Finding your market. How are we going to do this? So, basically, to find a niche market and a competitive market, you need to find a crowded market, NDIS, we've got that bit down pat. Secondly, the largest providers in the industry, top 10 providers, are your non-stop shop. Smaller providers, you can't be a jack of all trades because you will be a master of absolutely nothing. Number three, look at your individual, who you are individually as a person and then as an organizational skill set. You need to sell what your organizational skill set is more than what you do. So if you specialize in doing peg feeding and that's what your background is, that's what you need to be letting people know. Because then people go, okay, these guys do SIL, but they do highly complex physical SIL. Okay? If you specialize and you come from a mental health background, you need to go forward with that because then people will be able to you'll be more defined within the market. Okay, a little bit of my story because I think that everyone in this room has a story, and if you're a business owner, part of that story is what you really need to start leveraging to build your business. So, the way you perceive your history can very much define your future. Okay, so my history is I didn't learn to read or write till I was 13, okay, which was very, very hard. I'm dyslexic. I was on the autism spectrum. I had therapists throwing me left, right and centre, and didn't learn to read or write till I was 13. Okay, I also grew up with a military dad that passed away when I was about 8. He passed away from suicide, so we had a whole bunch of family trauma there that then led to us living in an extremely low socioeconomic space and living in a very high-risk kind of environment. Now, for a lot of people, that looks, like, oh, he didn't learn to read or write, or, his godmother's next door neighbour was a heroin dealer. This is all true. But what it meant when I became a support worker and when I started working in the industry, that I had a whole bunch of knowledge that the support worker next to me didn't have. So when I walked into a participant's house and there was drug paraphernalia on the table, I went, I'm not here to deal with that drug paraphernalia. I'm here to deal with this little kid that needs to go out in the community. That's what my job is, to give them that little bit of peace from this, okay? So that's a bit of my background. Most of the time I go way too far into it and then we can't use the video because I shame my family and shame myself. And I'm trying to stay married at the moment. So, but it's the same for all of you, okay? In this room, we have people that might be first or second generation Australians. You might have come from trauma. You might have come from an extremely academic background in another country. You may be someone that was born in Australia, I was talking to someone earlier today that was born in Caroline Springs, right here, and spoke about what that upbringing was like and how that applies to their business now. So when you look in yourself as a business owner, or even if you're an operator within a business, when you give that little bit of yourself, the person you're talking to will remember that. Okay? When I was doing a lot of BD work and I was signing up a lot of people with neurological disorders, when we go back and speak to the family about why they decided to go with that company, the company brand meant nothing because it was just another company. What they felt when I met with them is this person understands my child. This person understands my plight as a parent. That's the reason they chose to choose that organisation that I was working for at the time. Okay? So what you have experienced is extremely important with how you go with your business growth. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and a little bit about you guys. Cool. So, know your audience, okay? So, one of the things we have is when we know a little bit about ourselves, quite often what we put out there is we put out a very personalised approach to what we're going to do something, which is great, but we don't understand how the other person's going to consume it. So in theory, we have a big network of people on LinkedIn, in theory. And we're going to talk about different social media platforms in a second and how we use that to build our brand. But we also need to remember that our participants and our participants' families are not on LinkedIn. So if you're trying to build a brand, you need to have the participants and the participants' families understand who you are as well. That doesn't mean that you have videos that say, hey, we are a sports organisation and we do still and we're beautiful and we walk through a park holding hands with each other. Okay? I'm sorry. That means nothing to no one. Okay? What you need to be doing is looking at what that personalised story is. And I don't mean grabbing a participant, interviewing them and using them as a bit of inspiration porn. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm like sitting down and going, hey, this is what I've learnt today. Okay? When this happened to me back then, I learnt this, and now I'm applying it this way. Giving up that little bit of yourself will allow other people to give up parts of themselves to you. So knowing your audience. Okay. Within your audience, where most people go wrong is they think that their audience is one person. Okay? So when you think about your audience, you need to think about your referral network. So put your hand up if you think that your referral network are support coordinators. Shit. We have a big problem, guys. Okay? A really big problem. Okay? Put your hand up if you think that your referral network might be OTs. Put your hand up if you think your referral network might be direct participants looking for a service provider. Put your hand up if your referral network might be the parent of a participant or a family member of a participant. Put your hand up if your referral network might be a hospital. Okay? They're all different audiences you need to engage with. And what the problem is every single one of those audiences wants something different. So, when you do something which is as simple as this, it's what do you have? So you've done that you've looked at yourself and gone, what skill set do I have? Does my company have? What do we have? The next one is, what does your customers want? What does that audience want? Okay? So for what you have, it's always the same. You are the same. But what your customers want is different. A support coordinator wants something vastly different to a parent. They want a vastly different communication. They want a vastly different experience. So if you take something like this and you do it with multiple audiences, so you go, for my support coordinators, this is what they want from us. From my OTs, this is what they want from us. From other referrals, this is what they want from us. And you look at what other people aren't giving them, you really build the exact audience you're trying to talk to and you understand what that approach is going to be. Growing your business, well, obviously that's what everyone's here for because that's extremely important. So, access to professional networks, okay? A lot of people that I speak to and I work with go, I don't have access to a professional network. I don't have access to 7,000 people on LinkedIn, 10,000 people on LinkedIn. There's one person in this room that has more followers on LinkedIn than me, and that's the next lady talking, okay? Just putting it out there. Just putting it out there. When people say, James, you've got a lot of followers, look at Tanya. Okay. So, your professional network. So, there's ways of engaging with your professional work. There's positive ways and there's negative ways. The way in which I grew my network, and I've only been on LinkedIn for 4.5 years, okay? Some other people have been on for a very long time. 4.5 years I've been on LinkedIn. Is that I looked at people that had the same, I guess I watched what other people were posting, and I went, I'm interested in what that person has to give me. At the moment, what they're saying. I don't have anything to give them at the moment because I'm new. So I would watch what they're doing and I would like it. And after I liked it, I'd then make a comment. And then after I made a comment, I would then try to engage with them, replying back to something they'd posted. So I'm trying to build a relationship with those networks. Then you get to a certain size where your professional networks, it's a bit harder to do that. You're running an organization, stuff like that. So there's other ways of building professional networks. Okay. This is how I do it, okay? I have built a LinkedIn network that's rather large, okay? I also have quite a large occupational therapy network that's solely due to that website, okay? That website, you put in a postcode, it'll tell you every registered occupational therapist within that postcode, okay? What I do is one of them I can download from LinkedIn. You press download, it downloads all your contacts. On occupational therapy, it's very, 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 very person heavy. I will then take them and I will feed them into contact out and drop contact, okay? They work slightly different, but what they do is they then find that person's all their other networks, okay? So if I want, so Belinda Tooley's in the front room here, I've got her on LinkedIn. If I want to get to her on Facebook, I've got her Facebook link, okay? If I want to get to her on Twitter, I've got her Twitter link. I'm slowly building that professional network and be able to engage with them over and over and over again. A lot of marketers will say that Facebook advertising doesn't work. The reason Facebook advertising doesn't work is because in theory, the words that you need to use in this industry to advertise yourself, you cannot use on Facebook. You cannot use the word disability in advertising, cut, okay? So you'll see there's another button there that's called like audience. So what this means is what you've done is you've taken your professional network on LinkedIn, the people you've built, even your friends, anyone that has a shared interest to you, okay? You've built that. As long as you have 100 of them, you can then put that into a spreadsheet, drop it into Facebook, and make it a like audience. So it's not going to directly advertise to them. It's going to advertise to people that have the same premise as them, the same thought process as them, engage with the same pages as them. So it's a real good way of subtly advertising. Cool. So, One of the other big problems I see when I work with organisations is that they do all this advertising, they've worked out what their audience is, they've worked out what their story is, and then what happens is they get an email or a phone call and someone goes, I want to talk to you guys, I have a participant for you. Okay? And then the organisation just royally fucks it, basically. So, if anyone sends you an email, try to have a phone call with them because emails just don't have that interpersonal connection. If you can get a phone call, get a phone call. Okay? The other thing is what you need to remember is that if we've been around for 10 years, as you know, now 11 in relation to NDIS, most of these people calling you have already had service from someone else, and you need to learn from what's gone wrong. Okay? So if someone calls you up, so down there I really like this. I really like potato chips, but there are some flavours I do not like. So don't give me plain potato chips if I like barbecue. Okay? So you need to decide what that audience is. You can do it really easy on a phone. So when you're talking to that participant, the first thing you want to ask him is, oh, that's badly formatted. What led you to look for a new provider? Okay? So what most providers will do is someone calls up and they go, so excited, yes, got a referral. We do this and we do that and we do this. How can we help you? You're the service provider. How are they supposed to know that? So if you go to them, hey, how long have you been on the NDIS for? 6 years. I'm guessing you've had other services. Why are you choosing to change services? They're going to say, oh, look, the last service provider, look, they were really focused on high fears, and my son has a really heavy neurological disorder. Yes, he's in a wheelchair, but he needs more mental health support. That way, if you're not the right provider, in that you can say, oh, look, to tell you the truth, we're way more focused on high fears, and we're probably not going to be the right provider. If that's a support client, they're going to remember that you said we're good at this and not good at this, and you're not just taking everything, which means they're going to be more likely to send you further business. But you can also turn around and say, if you are the right provider, it might be around a mental health, working with people with neurological psychosocial disorders. You might be, well, so they weren't offering the right amount of care. What does that mean? Like, what was happening that made you change? And they'll be like, this, this, and this. And you can go, well, there's a myriad of reasons. And you can then reply saying, well, we would look at doing stuff. This is how we offer support. Not what we do, but how we offer it. How we're going to better the experience for that person with a disability. This is the quickest presentation I've ever given in my life, just putting it out there, because normally Bobby puts me last. I talk way too long, and then food comes out, and I get very infatuated with food and alcohol. So I'm James Loveday. Just a little bit more about me and what I do. I am not a business consultant that helps you grow your business. Okay, I'm not someone who's going to help you get referrals. I'm not someone who's going to help you with compliance. The compliance is over here. Okay, I'm not going to explain to you how to manage staff. I can't even manage myself. Okay, but if you're stuck in a rut, if you're a small business, medium-sized business, and you're hitting a wall, and you need to sit with someone and have a conversation about how do we slightly change our position, how do we find that market that we've lost. A lot of the medium-sized providers I work with, they'll come to me and go, we're doing this and we're doing this, and then it's all fallen apart and we don't know why. And when we go back to the core reason why it was working, and we take the business back to there, which is a really simple, easy conversation, it's really a suck eggs. They go, oh yeah, well that's where we went wrong. Cool, no worries, just go do it right. You know. So yeah, that's what I do. I work in more the innovative space. I also do random things like design. One of the things I did in Sydney was, one of the things I did in Sunshine was we had an investor that I was dealing with around a high physical support needs house. They were Vietnamese. They lived in Sunshine. They really wanted to invest in SDA housing, really wanted to do it. And I sat down with them and said, well, why do you want to do this? Why? Why do you want to invest? And a lot of people say it's because it's about making money. Well, that's not the reason people enter this industry. If they enter this industry for money, they're stupid because there's no money. So what we ended up doing is working with this guy, and I said, well, what does your community need that I don't know? Okay, so we had a really in-depth conversation about the Vietnamese community and what they would need in a house to have someone move in. So what we ended up doing was doing a high-vis house in Sunshine. He had a network, because at that time there was very, very low numbers for need. for HiFiz in the Sunshine area. And I said, well, how do we build a market? So spoke about the Vietnamese community. What we did was we took a HiFiz house and the 6-burner induction cooktop, we turned it to a 4-burner with a wok induction cooker, okay? So in theory, a little bit more of what the Vietnamese families were wanting. We then duplicated that in the outside area. Instead of having a barbecue, we did the exact same thing, okay? Now they have an outside cooking area. And now there's this really, really amazing thing, and it's the exact same thing but in 2 different languages. One of them is raised garden bed, and the other one is market garden, okay? Exact same thing, okay? So we put a market garden in the backyard where they made all their vegetables. So everything was paddock, well not paddock to plate, backyard to barbecue, I guess. And what we ended up with is when we took that to market within Sunshine with this investor, we ended up getting more referrals than were ever necessary for that home. We had families that would never have ever given up their children to FDA and to SIL go, oh look, we understand that this house has been designed not just to a standard, but to an understanding of what the people needed. So that's the kind of stuff I do. I've done the same with the Muslim community, with the Jewish community within Sydney. I also do that within, working generally with service providers, finding niche markets within their areas. So that's who I am. That's what I do.